Hello everyone. Today's video is an introduction to JavaScript. Um, I do have a bunch of additional exercises and examples and a handout for you. With this video, I'm just going to summarize the basics of the language, and so it will serve the purpose of just a quick introduction to JavaScript. What is JavaScript? JavaScript is an object-based client-side scripting language. It was originally developed by a gentleman at Netscape, I believe in the mid 1990s. It was called LiveScript. Um, Later it was renamed JavaScript by Oracle when they acquired the rights to its distribution. It is important to understand that JavaScript is not Java. So these are two different languages. JavaScript is designed to manipulate objects associated with a web page document. It could be the window, it could be the document itself, it could be elements such as forms, images, hyperlinks, pretty much every element that exists on the web page. That's the primary purpose of using JavaScript. Some of the common uses, you can see them summarized on this slide here. Display a message box, select list navigation, edit and validate form information. This is one of the most popular uses. Create a new window with a certain size and screen position. Status messages, display the current date or time, and perform calculations, which is what our final lab assignment is going to be on. It will ask you to use JavaScript to perform mathematical calculations. The document object model, you're going to see this quite often with JavaScript. In the textbook as well, every time you manipulate something, you look at this so-called document object model, or DOM. A portion of the DOM is shown here in this slide. It really just it's a hierarchy that defines every object and every element related to the web page. It's hierarchical in structure, and it's a way to access page elements and apply different styles to page elements. So in a nutshell, every time you see this, the DOM, or the document object model, just think of it as your web page. Okay, it refers to your web page along with everything that is part of it. Uh, I should mention here first that you don't really need to know how to program JavaScript in order to be able to use it in your web pages, but you do need to know how to include it. Okay, um, so the markup for the JavaScript code is really just a script tag. Much like with CSS, if we wanted to include certain styling, we would include that in between a pair of style tags. With JavaScript, we include the coding in between a pair of script tags. I should also mention that there are quite a few free or paid libraries of JavaScript scripts available on the internet. So these are predefined programs that somebody else wrote that you can just use directly on your web page to accomplish something without actually writing the code. It's kind of like a copy and paste. JavaScript, as I mentioned earlier, is known as a scripting language. It runs within the browser, so the browsers have this capability of understanding and executing JavaScript code. Okay, JavaScript statements are interpreted in real time by the web browsers when they're embedded within the web page without any interaction with any server. Okay, so the web browser executes these commands as it sees them, as it processes your web page. The JavaScript code is client-based, executed by the browser, and there's less load on the server. So that's one of the pluses of using JavaScript. It can be used to create a more dynamic and more interactive environment for the browser user. Interactive effects such as changing images, colors, animated graphics, things like that. Everything concerned with the web page can be dynamically controlled in terms of content, its placement, its visibility, its motion, etc. Via JavaScript. And once again, let's not confuse JavaScript with Java. which the programming language that was used to develop the now deprecated Java applets. I don't know if any of you have heard of them. They were quite popular when I was in graduate school. So today we really want to learn about JavaScript and not worry about Java applets. On the next slide, the diagram shows us where scripting languages stand on the continuum of programming languages. We got markup languages on the left here. They're easiest to learn, least complex, least versatile. On the right end of the continuum, we got the actual programming languages like Java, C, C++. They are hardest to learn, they're most complex, they're most powerful, and most versatile. In between those two stand the scripting languages like Perl and JavaScript. It's not as complex as a full-blown programming language like C++, but is more powerful than a markup language like HTML. JavaScript is the predominant client-side programming language. I should mention that it's the most popular one at the moment. The other scripting languages that are used, VB script or Visual Basic Script and ActionScript for Flash. But JavaScript is the most popular one at the moment, and some new HTML5 elements like Canvas, the one we talked about, makes really big use of JavaScript. A script is just a set of statements, a list of instructions to specify what actions are to be performed by the browser, and it's analogous to a cooking recipe or a knitting pattern, for example. Scripting languages do have a strict formal language. There are keywords that we need to be aware of and that we need to use in order to write our programs, and a grammar or syntax, which specifies how exactly we're supposed to use those keywords in order for the program to make sense. They're more formal than natural languages. Objects and properties. Well, for JavaScript, your web page is an object. Any table, form, button, image, or link on your web page is also an object. Each object has certain properties such as color, for example. The background color of your web page or your HTML document is referenced with document.bg color. So that's a way to change its value using JavaScript. So you just set the document.bg color to equal whatever color you want to use. And we're jumping straight into a bit of code here. This is an example of how to use an object in JavaScript. I know it may look a bit intimidating at first, so bear with me. You're going to see as soon as we use these a few times, we're going to start learning them, and we'll feel more comfortable with them, the elements of JavaScript. Well, here we got an object called person. It's declared as a variable, but it's an object because it has multiple fields. And this person object has a field named first name. It's been initialized to John. Last name initialized to Doe. Identification number initialized to 5566. And a full name field, which basically constructs the full name of this individual by concatenating together the individual's first and last name. So that's how you define an object. Now down here, what we're doing in the next statement is we are setting the full name of the object called person and displaying it inside the paragraph called object1. It's one of the half a dozen ways that we can display information on the screen in JavaScript. So up here you can see we've got a blank paragraph. It does have a name. It's called obj1 or object1. It's blank, it's empty. Down here we set its inner HTML, which means the HTML displayed in there, by simply calling the full name function, which belongs to the object person. So in simple English, what this is going to do, it's going to construct the full name of the person, and it will populate your obj1 paragraph with that value. Uh, Methods. Most objects have a certain collection of actions that they can perform over and over again. It's okay to call those both either functions or methods. In Java they're called methods. In C++ they're called functions. In JavaScript it's okay to use either one of these. They're used interchangeably. They're synonyms. An example of a function down here, you can write hello world into the browser window by using, and this is the second way of displaying um, output onto the screen. Different objects can do different things, just as a door can open and close, while a light can turn on and off. So we can implement those methods to accomplish different things. Um, the write function down here is a function of the document object. Okay. All right. Web page objects can define and we can define and manipulate our own objects or variables in JavaScript. Just the document object here is predefined, but we can create our own variables and um, um, use those in various ways. We can also use operations on variables. JavaScript does include a whole slew of these, and we're going to see them in a few minutes. Things like addition, subtraction, and so on. And we can also define our own functions to perform actions as we see fit. Since JavaScript is not HTML, we must let the browser know that we want to use it. This is the way to create a snippet of JavaScript code inside your HTML page. This part, the type equals text JavaScript, is actually redundant in HTML5 because that's the default value. It's not wrong, it's still going to work perfectly fine, but it is the default value in HTML5, so we really don't need it there. Okay, so the browser uses these two tags to discover where the JavaScript starts and where it ends. Scripts are included in HTML documents usually in the head section, but they may go into the body section as well. So you can have your scripts both in the head and the body section. Scripts in the body section will be executed when the web page loads in the browser, and scripts in the head section will be executed when triggered by some browser user interaction, an event with a given object, for example, an image on the web page. And scripts may also be placed in external files with the extension. JavaScripts will have an extension of JS. And the way we reference them in our HTML document is by simply providing the source file location, quite like with CSS and the styles that are saved in outside CSS files. And you may include multiple scripts in a single HTML document. It does not have to be just one. You can include as many as you need. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at this example here. JavaScript is inside the body section. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's simply going to display a dialog box with an OK button. The box will display the text "Welcome to my web page." You click OK and you dismiss the box. This is the third way of displaying something onto the screen using JavaScript. So the third way to output some text. And as you can see here, the script is located inside the body section. When you run the HTML page, once it gets loaded, the script gets executed, and this is what you're going to see on the screen. The dialog box with the OK button. Alert is a standard JavaScript instruction that will cause an alert box to pop up on the screen. The viewer will need to click the OK button in the alert box to proceed. And by entering the alert instruction between the two script tags, the browser recognizes it as a JavaScript instruction. And JavaScript uses simple instructions in order to manipulate and control parts of the web page. As you can see here, we got three different JavaScript instructions to display dialog boxes. All three of these work fine, and you're welcome to use all three of these. The alert box simply creates an OK dialog box. The confirm one has got an OK and a cancel button. And this one actually returns a value. If you click OK, it returns true. If you click cancel, it returns false. So you can use that information in some meaningful way. The prompt. The prompt allows you to specify a certain string inside the input box, and again it's got an OK and a cancel button. Variables are really just names for memory locations. If we need to use a value, but we think it may change, we save it in a variable. So we use variables as named memory locations. And JavaScript allows you to declare and use variables to store such values. On this slide here, you see a summary of how you're supposed to name your variables. We want to make sure that we use a combination of letters, numbers, the underscore, the dollar sign. We do not want to start with a number. Do note that JavaScript is case sensitive. Okay, variables don't have a strict type, so once you declare a variable, the value you assign to it could change from a number to a string, for example. However, their names are case sensitive. And of course, you're not allowed to use any of the reserved words, the keywords. Here's an example of a variable declaration. We use ID as the identification number. This is the way we declare it, var ID. We assign a value to it, basically the text returned by the prompt dialog box. We display that in an alert dialog box, and then we do that one more time. Okay. Null and undefined. An undefined value is returned when you attempt to use a variable that has not been defined, or you have declared but you forgot to provide a value for. Null refers to nothing, and we can declare and define a variable as null if we want absolutely nothing in it, but you just don't want it to be undefined. So a null value is defined. It simply means there's nothing in it. And we see an example here of using null in a variable declaration. On the next slide, we can see some of the special characters that people can use in JavaScript when programming. So if you're displaying text to the screen or to a dialog box or to the console, you can use these escape characters or special characters to accomplish either forcing the cursor to go back one space back, to go to the next line, to create a horizontal tab, new line carriage return, to display a backslash, single quote, double quote. Some JavaScript instructions. We already saw an example of this. We can display text within the document with the document write command. Well, actually they're called statements in JavaScript. So all of these commands, they're referred to as statements. We can change the font color of text. One of the examples I have in the weekly folder is showing you how to manipulate text, pretty much doing everything you can possibly do to it. You can change the formatting to bold, underline, italics, change the color, etc. Okay, prompt. JavaScript is event driven. It's designed to respond to certain browser user actions or certain events. For example, whenever the user clicks an HTML element, that would be an event. That's the onClick event is generated. When a page is loaded, that's onLoad. So JavaScript can recognize when the browser user makes a certain action, and the web designer may include some JavaScript statements in the web page to respond to or to handle, so to speak, these actions. And event handlers are functions that are called to respond to such actions. So onClick is going to be executed on mouse click when you click on something like a hyperlink, for example, on mouse over, when you move the mouse over a hyperlink. Such events are recognized by the browser, and you may include some JavaScript in your web page to perform some actions when these events occur. An example here: on click equals, and then we specify which function needs to be called. So perform some action here is our arbitrary name. It's the function we have created. Here's a list of some common HTML events. On change, which the HTML element has been changed. That's when the event gets generated. On click, when the user clicks on HTML element, it doesn't have to be just a hyperlink. It can be any one of the elements, like a button, for example. Mouse over, mouse out, key down, on load. You can read these on your own, and I got a link down here that takes you to one of the many places on the web where you can read more about the events that JavaScript allows you to handle. Functions. Okay, I'm going to stop here for a quick second, and we'll continue with functions in just a moment.